All right, welcome back to the Next of Kin. I'm Rich, joined by my son Christian. How you doing today, sir?
Not too bad, not too bad.
So last time we we did a video, and you subjected me to 151 original
I think a
Pokemon.
little bit more than that, but sure, yeah.
I think we only needed the 150.
No, because I skipped a couple. I showed you a couple extra ones that were not technically in the first
You
151.
cheater, you son of a bitch. So that was great, and we appreciate all the support we got on TikTok. They did very well, and so please subscribe to the channel and watch our full content on our YouTube channel and follow us and all that stuff. So today I'm going to subject you to Star Trek Aliens. So I'm going to go into our fancy thing here. So I've made a slideshow that we review that you can only see them, and then I'll probably ask you the name, and then we can talk a little bit about them and things like that. So first of all, I am not focusing on, because there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to be like, whoa, what about, so I'm only focusing on aliens from the TV shows, mostly from the original series, Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine, and then there's some in overlap with Enterprise. I'm really not doing too much from the JJ verse, and I'm not doing too much from Voyager, only because Voyager being on the other side of the galaxy, we didn't see the aliens except the first group of aliens, and there's a lot of repeat aliens and stuff too. So I figured to focus on the ones
I've watched, and again, just for my own, I have more knowledge in this than you did in Pokemon, obviously.
Yes, of course.
But I've also in none of those shows that I've ever watched fully through. The show I've watched the most there is Deep Space.
Yes.
And I've watched some of the more recent Paramount plus type stuff with you with for season 1 of Discovery. I think I watched all of Picard with you. And then we watched, and I really like what's it called, Strange New Worlds. So I do have some basis, but it's not something that I internalize necessarily.
Right, you're not gonna
as much as other stuff.
But you're gonna. So since it's already up on the screen there, what are some Star Trek aliens that you can name? There's some obvious ones.
I think I'll surprise you because I think I know more than you think I do.
Okay. I mean, so
and I think I give away too many of them. I think I can name 8. So
okay. And you're probably going to be able to name 8 that are here.
Yeah.
So, because obviously, and again, I have not tried to go. I don't know. There are some obscure ones, but there's not
And I've seen the JJ movies too.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of that.
So
in those,
okay. So well, let's go. Let's start with the most obvious one.
Vulcan.
That is a Vulcan, correct?
That's Spock's dad or something.
That is not Spock's dad. That is the very first Vulcan, technically.
Oh, that's
that a
from
human.
the movie.
Yes. Which movie do you think that's from?
I don't remember which one.
That is
5 or something.
That is First Contact.
Is it 5?
That is
6?
That is the first Next Generation film.
Yeah, isn't that so 6 then?
No, it's 9.
Oh, okay. Wait, they're not. They're 8. They're
8, 7.
Okay. Wait, they're 6 with the original guy.
There are 6 with the original,
okay.
So it's 8. Yes, it's definitely 8 because it's the first. There's 6 with the original cast.
I recognize the ship in the background. I think I've seen that movie once.
Yeah,
so.
and then there's Generations, which is the crossover movie, which is the handoff movie for the original cast.
I've seen that once too.
Yeah,
so.
and then next was the Next Generation movie, which is First Contact, and yes, this is the alien that we see at the end. So.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty typical Vulcan design. Hasn't changed too much.
I mean, most designs are just well, you go just the limitations of the original show being a TV show.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the most amount of budget. They don't have the Star Wars alien thing going on where there are a lot of humanoid aliens in Star Wars, but there's a lot of other weird Trandoshan, which is the lizard people,
right.
or Ithorian, which is the big curved head guy. Star Trek doesn't have a lot of that, but so they just built into the mythos of their world building, the reasoning why they're all just variations of human essentially.
Yeah, Star Trek did a nice job in Discovery's last season. Said that there was a race of many, many billions of years ago that really populated most of the planets, and that was the last season of Discovery, kind of almost looking for a weapon that was rumored that race. I forget the name. Forget what they were called. But
and then they went to the world between worlds.
Yes, they went to the world between worlds. And
it's the Star Trek version.
So we're not going to talk too much about Discovery because they don't have too many. There are a few new aliens in Discovery, but they do a lot of like retreads. So here's the next
guy.
one.
Isn't the big guy a new alien?
The new guy, yes.
I forget his name.
I forget. Yeah, he Doug Jones, I think his name is. Doug something.
The big guy is named Doug Jones.
Yeah, he's. He
doesn't have like a weird alien name.
Yeah, but he's in other things too. We just talked about we saw him in something else.
The really really tall guy.
The really really tall guy that had the funny walk.
They looked like the guy from like The Silence and like Doctor Who. Like that. His name is Doug.
That's the actor's name.
I'm talking about the character.
Saru.
Okay, yeah, I'm not talking about the. I'm not talking about.
And I forgot the name of the
actor.
Doug. The alien.
Yeah, it's
Doug.
his name is not Doug. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Sorry, I misunderstood where you were
that's
going.
That's why I was shocked. I'm like, that guy's name was Doug.
Yeah, Doug. Doug the alien Doug.
All right, yeah. No, I got
All right, so let's move on.
Romulan.
Yes.
Which are just like evil Vulcan.
You're not wrong.
Bad Vulcan.
The rumor is, or that that it turns out that the Romulans are a like genetic offshoot of the Vulcans.
Yeah.
So they are related. Yes. You can kind of see.
And then you got the weird guy from the JJ.
Well, it's funny because you got the weird guy from the JJ thing who just has tattoos.
Yeah, if you watch that performance is so weird.
Yeah.
That performance is...
And then you have top left. You made a joke about Spock's father. That is not Spock's father, but it's the same actor. That's Mark Leonard, who played a Romulan first, and then came back and played. He played Spock's father, and then he also played a Klingon in the Star Trek motion picture. So, like, he's actually been on the show three in Star Trek 3 different ways. The woman in the middle is not Romulan at all. She is she's half Romulan.
Oh,
she
okay.
is she's like her. She's an actress that was on the first season of Next Generation that they killed off, and then they brought back as her own daughter in an alternative timeline. Blah 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 blah. But she hates Picard, so that was
fair enough. He looks like it, yeah.
And then the guy on the right is the most famous guy because he's the one that he's a senator that Sisko manipulates into the war, and he's like, it's a fake. So it's the Star Trek. It's a trap. That's the Star Trek equivalent. So, all right. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're able to name this one.
Is this about the guy from like who died in the first season of what's it called? It's called Strange New Worlds. Is it the same race?
I believe these races are supposed to be related to each other.
Okay.
But no, they are not. It's not the same. Yes, but he does have a very similar look.
A mantoid.
They are and these are Andorians.
I did know that actually. That is in my brain. Like that's in my brain. Yeah. Okay. I should have actually got that.
So you have some very famous Andorians here. You have my favorite Andorian is on Enterprise, the series. They tried to make the Andorians kind of a main character. We kind of finally got some character within the Andorians. So this is Shran, who's played by Jeffrey Combs, who's played 10 different aliens on Star Trek, including
the Columbo villains.
Yes, he played Brunt and Wayun, and this is Shran, who he likes to call Captain Archer Pinkskin. But Jeffrey Combs that's kind of
racially charged.
Yeah, Jeffrey Combs is he's everybody's favorite actor because he's played so many different characters in Star Trek.
Looks vaguely familiar.
The top right guy is the first Andorian we really saw. And that guy was he's an Austrian actor, and they tried to give him like kind of a guy. They hired an actor with a funny voice. So I don't think they changed the look of the characters too much.
I mean, the what's it called are in a different place. It seems like
maybe a little bit lower. I like the design better, obviously, in the Enterprise.
Yeah, the bigger one looks a little bit better. Yeah,
and then more importantly, you see Captain Kirk doing a double fist punch of an Andorian, but that's not really an Andorian. That was a guy that was genetically altered because he tried to kill Captain Kirk.
It makes sense, yeah.
But he was from the Orion Syndicate, just so you know, in case you care. All right, you're going to know this one.
Cardassian or Cardassian?
Cardassians.
Yeah.
Not Kardashian, as everybody
that's the
knows.
joke, yeah.
That's the joke. Do you have an idea which two these are?
I don't know the names anyway.
No,
they're the two main. That's the one. The one guy's like the main villain.
Gull.
And then the other guy's the little like shady guy who's on like the space station.
Which one is the Taylor?
The guy in the back's in the tailor.
Yeah.
Because he looks goofier.
That's Garrick.
Yeah, Garrick. I knew that.
And then on the left is Goldukok, who's like the big bad. So Deep Space Nine's original bad guys were going to be the Cardassians, but then they bring in the founders and all that stuff later. But Ducat's
Are
got
they like? Oh yeah.
Ducat's I think is probably in the most in terms of appearances of because he's in the first episode and he's all the way to the last episode, so he's in and out, and he has an incredible story because obviously so does Garrick. Garrick's probably one of everybody's favorite non-main characters that has such a recurring
he's
role.
he's like a supporting character, but he's in quite a bit of episodes,
Garrick
especially
is-
by like the last few seasons.
Garrick
right?
is in some of my favorite scenes of Star Trek, Deep Space Nine specifically. All right, next one. You're gonna know these two.
Ferengi.
You are correct.
That's like the most like non-human looking one thus far, right?
Sure, that's
Basically.
the one. So a little silliness about so every TV show kind of wanted to have their bad guy, right? So like the original series had the Klingons and the Romulans. So Next Generation was like, all right, we need to have our bad guy because now the Romulans were still around, but the Klingons were our friends now on Next Generation. So like, let's create a new bad guy, and this was what they came up with was the Ferengi, and they were awful.
Like early on, they wanted
Yes,
that?
they were goofy and they didn't look like they're
Well, yeah, they're not because they're like more of like they're like a thievy little like scammy like race.
but no,
sort
but
of
not
thing,
yet.
Right?
Like we didn't even know that yet. Like,
Oh,
that
this is
came
they're
later.
okay. So this is on Next Generations before Deep Space.
This
Okay.
is when Next Generation introduced them in the first or second season, and they had like laser whips, like Iron Man 2. They had like kind of a goofy whip thing, and they were like these little kind of trolley things.
Yeah, they're like trolls, but look basically like
then-
I mean, a lot of the actual Star Trek archetypes are just kind of like
Right.
fantasy archetypes, like
Sure.
even like the Vulcans are very elf coded.
Yes.
Yeah, like very
Yeah,
elf
definitely.
coded.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so these are like goblin, like orc, not orc. They're probably goblin coded is like kind of what Ferengis are.
Yeah, I'm sure there's supposed to be a combination of those two. But obviously the most famous Ferengi is Quark.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when they got into the more of the commercialism, like, and that's why a lot of people love Quark so much because he's the most practical of all the characters on Deep Space Nine. And he's probably my personal favorite. Okay.
No, I like Quark. He's one of my favorites when I do watch Deep Space.
Because again, great story arc from just being kind of a crook to some of the best episodes really involved.
I feel like he has good interaction with the most characters too, and
Yeah.
very distinct relationships with most characters on that show, like that are different. So
Yeah, and there's funny stuff like even the lore, the great material continuum is a philosophy that Ferengi kind of the river will provide, so to speak.
Sure.
So it's almost like it's almost like mocking the Force in some ways in Deep Space Nine
Sure.
when it's talked about in a specific episode. And their governing rules are the rules of acquisition, the 200 and
they just very on the nose, like capitalist.
two of the famous rules of acquisition is war is good for business, and the next one is peace is good for business. Once they have once you have their money,
little contradictory.
Yeah, once you have their money, never give it back. Like they're just, and we don't know all of them. Most of them were just incorporated in episodes.
It's like Gibbs's rules.
They're kind of like Gibbs's rules. We don't know all 100, 200, and whatever it is. So, all right, I don't think you'll know this one.
That's lumpy. That's like Wookiee without eyes. Like I don't know what is that. What is it even from?
This is the salt monster.
That's not a name. That's not a race name. It's just the salt monster.
He is the M113 alien.
I don't know what that means.
Yes. So this is so Star Trek gets created. Obviously, they do the first pilot.
What show is this from?
This is from the original series.
Okay.
So-
And that is better than a lot of the actual designs. It's better than just like the floating like bits of gas that like half the villains were on that show.
Sometimes we get that. That's awful. You're correct.
It's like,
Well, again, 1967.
well, yeah,
So-
I get it. But
So this is from the episode The Man Trap.
it's like a Doctor Who thing.
So the funny thing is, this is not supposed to be the first episode. This is supposed to be the third or fourth episode. But
Okay.
when NBC saw this episode, they wanted an alien, a scary alien, in the first episode to
like,
scare
grab
children.
people, kind
So
of,
they
yeah.
made The Man Trap, which was supposed to be, like I said, the third or fourth episode. It ended up being the first Captain Kirk episode aired. And this is
there's a couple weird episodes at the beginning.
yeah,
Right?
and this alien basically lives by it needs salt.
Out of
so
people's
So its
bodies.
hands are covered with suckers, and they put them on your face,
Yeah,
and
it
they
sucks out
suck
of
the salt
human
out of
bodies.
you.
Okay, yeah, that's what I guessed.
But they're also a changeling, so they can take on the form
Okay.
of and they kind of what's cool about this episode is there's a scientist, and he talks about this character is the last of its kind, and it's like the buffalo. So there's a whole thing about in the very first Star Trek episode that's aired, we already get a little bit of like the moral play that do they want to kill this last alien?
The underlying ideas that are always been very
this is it's like he's the buffalo. This last character is the buffalo. There is no difference. It's like, and Kirk's like, the only difference is your creature's killing my people. Dun 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 dun, and they go to a commercial. So all right, this one you'll know.
Yeah, Klingon. There's a lot of them here.
And there's so many great designs.
There's a lot, so many like consistent designs across the years.
Yes, and obviously
where are the new ones?
They're there.
It's like
that awful looking thing there on to the right there. Yes,
like all the way in the corner. Why did they like over design them so much? Like in that first season?
Because Discovery really made some bad decisions in the first season. That's the best way to describe it. Like, I
understand that like there's gets like that. I understand like updating things as you get like better technology and such, but when we got like thank God like we got like Worf though, like who looked the best he probably ever did, like was in like Picard season 3, right? Like in terms of like the makeup quality and shit like that. Although he's never looked bad, like in terms of the makeup.
So obviously in this picture you have the animated version. Then you have the ones on the left, which were from the TV series, where they even got cheaper as they went too. Like by the last season, they just had like dark complexion makeup on.
Sure, yeah.
And then you have the guy in the middle below Worf. That's Mark Leonard, and that is from that is the first redesign where we actually got prosthetics. So if you look at that guy that's below Worf, that's the guy from Star Trek Motion Picture, and that's really
like the consistent.
That's the one we got that led to what we got in all the Star Trek movies, which led to the other
with like
ones.
the long hair and like dark complexion.
Yeah, like the beard and the ridges and everything.
Yeah.
And obviously the ridges, Worf's ridges, his hairstyle changed a little bit. They kind of cleaned up the thing and tried to improve the thing. And this is when Michael Westmore's are legendary within the film industry, but Westmore's family got involved in doing the makeup. And then obviously you've got Deep Space Nine. They continued, and you got, but then you get into the Discovery ones, and which is
they're in Deep Space Nine quite a bit, aren't they?
They're a major character in Deep Space Nine.
I mean, once Worf like gets into.
Well, you have Worf, you have Martok, you have Worf's kid.
Yeah.
You have his brother, and obviously, the Klingons are the biggest allies with the Federation in the fight against the Dominion. So once we get into the war, there's a lot of stuff, and it really, really brings up Worf's arc, which is one of the reasons they bring Worf into Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
All right, now a great one. This is we're gonna get into some dog shit ones now.
That's not a fucking. That looks like a Star Wars alien. I don't even. What does it start with?
Well, what does it look like to you?
It's like a snake potato. Like I don't even know. What do you think is supposed to, like a dog? I don't know.
This is supposed to look like a dog. Yes.
Is it?
Yes. That's what my joke was. A dog shit alien.
It looks like a seal.
So this is from
I guess they kind of look like dogs.
This is part of what was wrong with the first season of Next Generation. This is what one of the aliens looked like.
Okay, so they just like kind of abandoned, in like the first season, they just kind of abandoned a lot of like the more original. Because it's fine that like certain, because obviously like some exist, but I remember like at the like beginning of like the third like JJ movie, or I don't know, I don't even think he directed that one actually, but like of the movies in like the newer like modern like movies, like there's those weird like small aliens, which I'm like, these don't like seem overly consistent with like actual like Star Trek, but this isn't like a humanoid thing at all.
This is this is just a guy in a prosthetic mask, obviously, and this is.
Does he just have like a normal body?
Yes, this is an Antican.
Okay.
I think we only see them once, and we never see them again.
And then they were deleted.
They were taken out and returned to the pound.
They were Thanos snapped out of existence. Yeah.
So this is so I laughed.
The eyes look so weird.
Yeah, well, it's just somebody's regular eyes.
Yeah, but it's like on this. So it's like
it looks like he's wearing a football on his head. It's kind of what it looks like. So
you did a whole like non-human design, but then you just gave it like human eyes, which is like
it's the guy's regular eyes. They're
like something like that would be on Star Wars, but they would change its eyes.
Sure.
That's
true.
you know what I mean? Like,
Well, again, it was 1987 or whatever year this was.
no, I get it. Like, it's like,
But these are bad.
Yeah.
Like, these are bad. And from the same episode,
look at Mr. Potato Head. That's like those are the reptilians from Doctor Who.
these are bad too, right? These are
Doctor
worse.
Who aliens.
Yes, these are. You talk about like Batman not being able to turn.
I mean,
his
these
head.
at least are like slightly more.
Oh, I hate these.
These are like more consistent. Like you could say like, oh, they're just like whatever. Like they're at least kind of humanoid, I guess. Not really, but
These are the Solays. We never see them again either. By the way,
really,
we see that it's an episode where we're supposed to.
it's like a D&D thing.
Like it's like they're having like a treaty or sometime a conference with a bunch of different aliens. So they brought in all these
they're
new
kind of
character
like
designs.
interesting looking. I'm not gonna
They're
lie.
fine. I
But
mean,
they're like
they are very Doctor Who like Silurians.
yeah,
looking.
Silurian. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, but they're I'm stuttering. They. Yeah, they're not very overly consistent with like the last two are not very consistent with overall like Star Trek design, like mythos. For
and Next Generation, I think they start to realize.
They have 2 claws, or they have 3 claws.
I don't know because that's all. I never even thought about the hands. I was only looking at the stupid.
Like I'm
head.
just looking at that hand. There's only 2. I only see 2 claws. It's like
He's
really
going
weird.
like this, yeah. He's like doing, he's doing, yeah. What's up, man?
That's stupid.
Or maybe he's doing like "Call Me Later." He's doing like in 1990 cell phone thing. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, moving on.
That's racist.
Well, you're not wrong.
It's like I don't know. That's the first thing I thought. The half black faces. I don't know, just like I don't know. Two-Face from Batman.
These are the people from Sharon.
They don't have a name. They're just the people from Sharon.
Well, they're Sharonians or whatever they're called. So Sharon is the name of their planet.
The
guy on the right is Frank Gorshin, who's the Riddler on the TV show, The Batman.
Okay, that's funny. Real quick, why is like maybe you're gonna explain this? Why is like one of them have like the black on one half of the face and the other one have the black on like it's just bad design?
No, like, this is great. This is exactly the point.
This is like it's just bad design.
No,
or is it like actually part of
these guys hate each other?
Oh, okay, I get it.
Okay, so why do they hate each other?
Okay, this is like the stupid like Rick and Morty episode where they're like the cone nipple people hate the target nipple, but they look the same, but they're like I hate you for having like it's like a racism thing.
Yes, this
it's
was
like
the allegory.
I hate the left side black people versus like the right. It's like where they're basically the same thing, but it's like this meaningless. Okay, I understand.
That's what this whole episode was about.
Okay, that's fine. It's weird. I mean, I guess it's like a very on the nose way of.
But it's also 1960s television.
Yeah.
So the idea is that these two guys are the last. These guys, the guy on the right's been chasing the guy on the left because he's a criminal, and in his mind, he's a terrorist. And the idea is that again, this was during the 60s, and this is during religious, racist. And riots and all kinds of stuff. So Star Trek, this is a great moral play. This episode's called Let This Be Your Last Battlefield. When they end up bringing these two guys back to their home planet, the entire planet's been destroyed. They've destroyed themselves. Mm-hmm. And they beam down to the planet to continue their hate. And that's the ironic end that even though their entire planet has been destroyed, they've killed each other, everybody's killed each other, all they have left is their hate. And that's how the episode ends. So this is a very well thought of Star Trek episode, obviously, because
I can understand the
this is what this was, and for those of you that don't know,
that
the
story's been
series,
told in a bunch of different things. Yeah,
but I would argue they did it first.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
In my opinion. All right, moving on.
I recognize. I know what the race is, but I don't know if I could name the.
Starts with an O.
Allurian.
Close. Or Orions.
Orions.
These are the Orions.
Yeah, just like Orions.
So the women that are Orions, when they're green, are very attractive, and they basically no man can resist them. This is a very 60s thing, by the way.
Yeah, that's very dated. Yeah.
So yes, the most famous one, because this is from the pilot. The one on the left is Susan Oliver. She's not like in when Captain Pike is captured by an alien we're going to see, they make him like see this woman as an Orion, and we learn in the very first episode of Star Trek about the Orion Syndicate and the slave girls and all that stuff, and they dance. And then on the right we have another Batman character.
So these are like the Twi'lek coded character.
Seriously,
like,
yeah, sure. That's yeah,
like from like Star Wars.
Definitely. The woman on the right, that's Yvonne Craig, and she played Batgirl. So we've had two people now that were on Batman, the TV show. And then obviously they have in Lower Decks they have a character that is an Orion. We see the Orions again on Picard. We see the Orions a lot, and then obviously in Star Trek 1 with Chris Pine. He shows up at Lieutenant of hers. She comes into her apartment, and he's
a whole dumb scene.
Yes, he's with a red-haired, green-skinned girl.
Yeah, exactly. Those movies are movies.
All right, now another great alien from season 1 of Next Generation.
No, it's more... At least they're humanoid.
Yes.
I don't fucking know. Just what does it start with?
What?
What does it start
Starts with B.
A butoid.
Okay, it's spot on. So
a big headoid. I don't know.
So you know, like how they have how we talk about in like math when there's just 0 and 1s. You ever heard?
Yeah.
That's what that's called.
Binary.
Binary.
Yeah.
So guess what these are called?
The binaries.
Binars.
I don't know. That's stupid.
And guess what they speak in?
Binary.
They speak in binary. Their language is binary.
How do you speak in binary?
I don't know.
They don't speak.
Yes, sir.
They speak, but it's all like code.
Beep, beep, boop, beep.
It's like beep, 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 boop, boop, boop.
They speak in R2.
Yes.
They
speak in R2, basically.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, I hate this.
We never saw them again.
We never saw them again.
Okay, so all these people went home and then they immediately got their planet blew up.
They got updated and were replaced with Java. Which is another programming language that replaced binary.
Sure.
So Fortran. They were defeated by BASIC and Fortran. You never had to take computer programming.
No.
Now we get into a nice, great, problematic alien.
They're coded like a race or something, aren't they?
Well, when you look at them, how would you describe the way they've been developed in terms of what do you think their intelligence is? The way they've
low.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they got big eyebrows.
Yes.
And, this weird
I hate these aliens because I feel like they decided, let's create an alien that looks like somebody that has Down syndrome.
Oh, I didn't get that vibe, but I guess the one guy kind of, but
they're not bright.
Okay, but
they're kind of bright, but they're not. They're obviously they have space travel, but they're also not able to function.
They're intellectually not disabled, but compromised or
yeah. They're like special ed aliens. So people don't like these. These are called the Packlids, and
what are they from?
They're from Next Generation.
Season 1. Season 1.
Maybe not season 1, probably season 3 or 4. And again, we never see these guys. I think we see them again we see them wandering around on Deep Space Nine at some point, I'm sure. Because we always have a bunch of aliens just walking around in the background.
Shit, yeah.
But we never get an episode that deals with the Packlids ever again. And this is one of those ones that has not aged well.
Yeah, I can see what you're talking about. Again, I can't really tell.
This episode
I can't really tell what
me
you're
a
lot.
Talking
about exactly from the photo.
We look. They had goofy voices. And they talked slow. And this is like some of the Star Wars.
But yeah, the eyebrow, the eyebrow design, most to me evokes that they're there's some weird I see what you're talking about.
And people thought it was people were very offended, especially as time's gone on. This episode, these aliens,
I'm sure
have become very problematic. For people.
From the way you're making it sound, it doesn't sound like it.
If you watch the episode, you would totally get what I'm saying. All right, now we get into some. This is the first alien that's a little bit different from all the other aliens that we've seen.
That's a fungus guy.
I always thought it looked like a pizza.
Kinda. What the? Is it humanoid even?
Well, there's a guy underneath it.
That's not humanoid.
No, they're not humanoid. They're like a ground creature. This is a silicon-based creature known as the Horta.
Horta. Okay.
Yes. So Captain Kirk has to go to a planet.
What's on it? Just
that's just they're basically it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to be living. It's almost like molten rock. It's living rock.
It's like a rock thing.
They're like a rock thing.
I see what you're saying.
And they can travel through rock. They can tunnel through rock because they're basically they have acid / volcanic heat, so they can burrow through. And
at least this one is unlike the other ones where a lot of is it sentient?
Yes.
Okay, it's gonna speak.
No, it doesn't have the ability to speak, but Spock Vulcan mind melds with it and is able to talk to it.
Okay, interesting. Well, at least this one is not as like bad as like. Well, it's not even necessarily bad because it sounds like vaguely interesting. But at least this one you said is like okay, this is like a different. Like all the humanoids are basically like the same, like supposed to be like descendant of like the same thing.
Right.
Whereas like this is like oh okay, this is like a different alien that is like a different. It's not carbon based.
Right.
Like it's
This is a
silicon based.
silicon-based
So it
creature.
would have a different trajectory of like
right.
evolution and like that will actually is not as like whereas like the snake one and like the other dog
Right.
one like that one doesn't make as much like sense, but this one does.
I
Like,
think this is the first one that
it's like a separate track to.
I
evolution,
think this
like,
one was
or
the
track.
first full costume, like where there's no arms and legs, and it's just a guy like crawling around on the ground.
Yeah.
But these are the Hortas, and an episode's called "Devil in the Dark" because the Federation is mining on a planet, and they're basically they're strip mining the planet.
Yeah, but there's life on the planet, so.
But they feel like these guys are just in their way. So Kirk and Spock and everybody has to realize, oh my God, like
they're sentient.
we're
destroying their planet.
We're destroying their planet, and then there's these round silicon balls that they find everywhere, and they realize this is the last Horta.
Oh, okay.
And it has to survive because it has to
Those are eggs.
Hatch the eggs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out, and it's a great happy ending because Spock is able to Vulcan mind weld it. Like the miners are like protesting and they jump some of the Federation guards and they want to kill this thing. And then Kirk's like, the next man, I'm going to kill him. Like Kirk actually threatens to kill a miner because he's going to go after the Horta. And he's like, you've been killing their babies. And it's like by the end, the miners realize that they can work together with these things and actually they can increase their productivity. And now there's a bunch of Hortas and it's a nice happy ending, but this is a great moral play Star Trek episode as well.
Okay, cool.
And
I like that.
And so Leonard Nimoy, he has to act by giving a vocal mind meld to this creature and talk about the pain and the loss. And it's a little overacted, but it just shows why Leonard Nimoy is such a beloved Star Trek actor.
This is the weird.
What show is this from?
This is Deep Space.
Yeah.
These are the clone things.
These
right?
are the clone things.
I don't know what they're called.
These are the Jem'Hadar.
Jem'Hadar. Oh, okay, I knew that. I couldn't pull that from somewhere, but the name is familiar.
I really like the Jem'Hadar. I
remember there was the one episode where
they're a very warrior-based race, which I think and they have a sense of honor amongst them.
I remember the one episode where where there's one of these guys, and then they Sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts. I forget. They're like stuck. I think they're stranded on a planet. Like it's one of the. I remember it being very. I don't remember quite exactly what happens, but I remember I think
ship.
Yeah, there's like a ship. Yeah, and I forget exactly what happens, but I do remember that it's like a deeper episode.
Yeah. So remember they're led by the Vorta. And the Vorta is the funny-looking guy, and the Vorta basically betrays them so that the Federation will take him back. And and the guy who's leading those guys realizes that he's like, we are the Jem'Hadar, and there's a sense of honor that they have. And Worf,
and they won't not fight was basically how it ended up coming.
And the founders have bred them to be addicted to something called Tetracell White, and they go insane if they don't get it. So, that becomes a plot point throughout the show. But there is a strange set of honor that they grow to respect the Klingons a little bit because the Klingons have a similar. But the Klingons fight because it's in their nature, where the Jem'Hadar are bred to fight.
Yeah, they're conditioned.
But even Worf starts to appreciate the Jem'Hadar over time. And there's some really good episodes. I think the Jem'Hadar was a pretty good creature.
Yeah.
And they're very tough to fight, especially their ships were really tough to fight, too. All right. This one is from a Star Trek, one of the Next Generation movies.
That's not okay. Vampire.
It is a very vampire-looking creature.
Vampire-coded?
Yes.
A lot of the Star Trek races just look like fantasy-coded.
Yes. So this is the first time we actually see these characters. We do see them again. We do see them again. They are connected to another Star Trek alien that you've already seen.
They kind of look Ferengi based a little bit. Are they Ferengi based? No. Okay.
These are bad guys.
They're connected to something I've already seen?
They're genetically related to. They're kind of the slave part of another alien race.
Romulan?
Yes.
Okay.
Romulans are from Romulus.
Okay, so
and these are the
Remulans.
These are the Remans that are from.
Okay, because Romulus and Remus founded Rome,
and so it's very spot on the nose. But these are the creatures.
I think Romulus kills Remus at some point.
Yeah, pretty much. These are the characters that the Romulans have pretty much enslaved to do all their like dirty work. Their mining. There's a guy who plays the Patrick Stewart clone in Star Trek Nemesis. Is it Tom Hardy? It is Tom Hardy.
It's Tom Hardy.
So Tom Hardy is a human clone of Picard, and he gets sent into a slave mine because they abandon the plan, and he ends up being raised by the Remans on the planet, and they rise to power and kill the Romulan Senate and take over in Star Trek Nemesis.
So. Gotcha. Interesting.
All right.
Weird design.
These you might recognize.
The Watcher from Marvel.
It does kind of look like the Watcher.
I do recognize it. I can't name it.
Do you remember where you've seen these? You've seen an updated version of this too.
Oh, this is this like what the guy that was like teleporting around and shit? Like
no.
Like I don't like I'm trying to think of the.
So think Captain Pike.
Are these like the architects people? What are they called? The guys that they're like the because Pike obviously has like a very specific like end. Are these the people from like the weird thing at the?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
These are the Telosians.
The Telosians.
Yes.
Okay.
And if they turn around, their back of their head looks like a bud. But
okay.
Yes, these are the Telosians from the Star Trek pilot, the Captain Pike, the Cage, and then we've seen them again in Discovery. And we will see them again. I'm sure it's at some point in Strange New Worlds because obviously the Captain Pike arc at some point has to end where he has to be in that accident, and then obviously so on Discovery they do a flashback to explain Captain Pike's origin story, but they do it by showing us footage from the actual Captain Jeffrey Hunter footage.
Yeah.
I think when Strange New Worlds ends, we're going to get an epilogue which basically kind of talks about how Captain Pike gets to go back to Talos 4 and not live in that wheelchair.
Yeah, because they live in like do these guys live in that same like weird like nebulous like
they live at a planet that basically
no, but obviously like
no one's allowed to go to.
No, but obviously like it doesn't like isn't there like a there's something with like a woman who's there, right? Like who's like
Vina.
Yeah, Vina. And she's like she's
like still there.
She has like a similar like thing where she's like fucked up.
Yes.
But she's fine because she's like almost like plugged into something.
She was on a ship and it crashed.
Yeah.
And these people are a mental race, so they're able to
they
give
exist
you
in like
the
a different
illusion.
plane of existence. Oh, it's an illusion.
They just give you the illusion that it's almost like a drug, like a narcotic. The way they describe it is that they make you like. He won't be trapped in his body.
But it's interactive though. Like people within it like are interacting with each other.
You physically are.
So it's more than just a physical thing. Like there is something like a little bit beyond.
It's mental and physical. Like
it's like almost like a psychic like plane sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like
and so that's what's the great about the end of that arc where Spock betrays essentially everyone to bring Pike back.
Yeah.
And the more we build into Strange New Worlds, we know that Spock knows what's going to happen to Captain Pike.
Yeah, because we've seen a bit of that.
They've discussed it.
Yeah.
So he's number one. They all know.
I got to rewatch Strange New Worlds at some point.
Okay. This is a great alien because it's got a great lore because of something.
It looks like vaguely.
So the one on the left is from the original series.
Why is the one on the left have no eyeballs?
Because it was a bad mask in 1967. It's just a plastic mask. They're kind of pig looking, obviously.
Oh yeah, kind of, yeah.
These are Tellarites.
The one on the left more so than the one on the right.
The ones on the right are the updated ones from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, the one on the right is actually one of the better like costumes here.
So like Doctor Who, they were able to do prosthetics instead of just a rubber mask.
Yeah.
But it's funny because the ones on the left are the Tellarites, but because the mask was so bad, the guy had to lean back.
But so yeah, he's kind of like
look through.
Yeah.
So when he did that, he came across as arrogant. right?
Sure, yeah.
So
they just kind of
they
like,
built that into the
they
lore.
kind of just coded that into
the Tellarites are arrogant.
into the species.
Yes,
Okay,
they're
yeah.
all arrogant. The entire species is arrogant.
Oh, this is like you're like there's one that's kind of like that. Because we were talking about there's one before we were filming. Like, I think yesterday or something. You were saying that like there's like a Kit Fisto like type alien where Kit Fisto is like to be fair it's a little bit different because like this is just one guy had to do something because of the way his costume was, so they coded it to like the entire species. Where Kit Fisto is just in like a single scene of like Attack of the Clones where he like smirks at the camera. So when they finally got around to like writing him in like
they
books and like in Clone Wars, they make him very like confident and like and a little bit jokey and like shit like that. So
all right, moving on. We're back to Next Generation Season 1.
What the fuck is going on? Like why? Like what like why did they do this?
It's like
these ones don't even look good.
These don't even look good. This is definitely
CG. Like
no, there's no CG. It's 1987.
Well, I know that. It's like it's weird. Like the eyes like almost look like shitty CGI.
Well, these are like really. These look like someone broke into the BBC and stole Doctor Who costumes.
It's actually it's weird because
from like 1965.
Okay, so these are just entirely practical.
Everything's practical.
Okay, so it's very weird because it looks like bad like early CGI to me. Like no. I understand it's not, but I'm saying like it's like I don't know how they managed to like make it feel like that. Like it's not a good thing. Like I'm saying it's bad that like because the bottom part looks more like the lips and shit look like okay, we just painted a guy's like lips, and then you get up to the top part and it looks like it's like this is badly superimposed.
So the way I think this was done, I think that like his mouth was uncovered and they added the shit to his chin.
These are the gilloids,
and you can see where his nose ends.
Yeah.
So I think where the gills are is where he was able to look out.
Yeah, I can tell that. Yeah, it's like it's where the little scraps of our little gills
and
are.
they kind of have like a weird fish mullet too. These are the antidans or antidans.
Was it already called the antidans?
Probably.
Did you already say that?
No, these are something different. I don't know. But either one, it doesn't matter because we never see them again either. This is
they all died.
This is
the water dried up on their planet.
Sure.
Why would they be like? Why do they have? Okay, why is there a land-based fish? Like alien.
That's one of those things.
They live in a aqua world, at least.
Sure, maybe.
Do we not know that?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because obviously there are like fish-based like Star Wars ones, and like
quite often
they live
we
on
would see
aqua
these
planets,
characters
like,
in the
the
transporter room.
Like
they would beam onto the ship, and Captain Picard would say, "Welcome to the Enterprise," and then there would be something we almost would never see them again in the episode.
Okay.
So these are I don't remember. They were not important, but I just remembered how bad these were.
These ones are I think these are the worst ones so far.
These are the worst ones so far. This and the dog one are pretty bad. This one's very complicated. How they did this one.
Isn't that's a human?
Yes.
He's
actually a very famous actor. Well, not famous actor. His dad's very famous.
This is a different
race.
His
brother's
very
famous.
This is not a human?
No, he's a little kid, but they're not he's not a humanoid. They're humanoid, but they're not human.
There's no like is the ears weird? I can't tell. Or
he
is
just
that
has a hat on.
Okay. So what is it?
The actor is Clint Howard.
I don't know who that is.
Ron Howard's brother.
Okay, interesting.
He's been in Star Trek a whole bunch of times.
Okay. Why is this? Like, why is it a different race? Like, is it from a different planet?
One of the great episodes of Star Trek, because remember in the original series, the Enterprise is it's almost like the Old West. Like the universe isn't very well at this point in the Federation.
It's not all mapped.
It's not all mapped out. Kirk and everybody, they're on a 5-year mission.
Yeah, that's why it's like a discovery. It's like a expedition type. Yeah.
So they come across the first Federation.
I know they come across
ship.
a shit ton of like.
Do you remember years ago?
Okay, real quick. I know they come across like tons, and I know there's not like especially when you go to like like the original series, you end up at a lot of like. There's the one planet that is just like here's like. Roman
Nazi Earth.
Here's Nazi Earth, and here's Roman Earth, which I feel like have become like much less like common to do like in nearly any other of the media, right? But those I guess are not humans, right? Or they are the humans just at a different
they're
planet.
humanoid. So there's various
ways.
Is
this like one of those?
There's various ways that Star Trek address that. So there's one planet that is a gangster planet. And that's because the Federation visited the planet like 100 years before Captain Kirk and left them a book about the Roaring Twenties. So the entire society took on the concept of
that's
the 20s
fine,
gangsters.
Sure, yeah.
Because they're very that race. They're like they basically imitate humans. The Roman Empire one is very interesting because that episode, the Enterprise comes across this planet and it is the exact same as Earth in terms of landmass and oxygen, but doesn't look like Earth. And they beam down to the planet and they find that on this planet the Roman Empire never fell. And so Kirk basically has to so think of if you had like Roman fights like we saw in Gladiator 2, for example, they'd be on TV now and they'd be sports and they would have canned laughter and crowd cheering and they would do it like a TV show.
Sure,
and at the end of the episode, when Kirk basically is able to, save his crew, blah, 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 when he beams back to the Enterprise, the irony of that episode is that all these there's all these people.
This is the
sun worshippers.
I was just thinking of that. I know there's the one episode where they talk about the sun worshippers, and then it ends up just being like sun is not like cosmic sun. It's like sun as
it was the Son of God.
So
this planet is supposed to be for religious people. This planet is a parallel version of Earth, where the Roman Empire, where they had Caesar and Christ, and it took 2,000 years for the word of Christ to spread. So a lot of people like that episode because at least it's interesting. Then in season 3 of Star Trek, they have a guy that's like a historian who goes to this planet and he introduces what Nazis wanted to do, but without the murdering. How people say, well, the Nazis were very efficient.
Oh, it's just
that weird mindset that Nazis were actually,
even,
if they weren't so
accurate.
awful, they would have been great.
Yeah,
because they invented the punch bug and shit like that.
And the Autobahn.
The
trains ran out of time.
The trains ran out of time.
Which wasn't true, but sure.
So the idea is that this historian thinks that if the Nazis wouldn't have been so evil, that they would have been a great society. But then what happens is the society realizes they like the concept of what the Nazis did. They drug him, they make him their Führer, and then that's why everybody hates that episode because it's basically space Nazis. It's and they have the Third Reich and everything. But at least in that episode, they purposely design everything to look like Nazis. But in this is the First Federation. And
back to the actual thing.
This episode in the First Federation, they test the Enterprise and they subject them to a scary alien and they're going to destroy the ship.
Wearing a beanie?
Kirk brings up something called the Corbinite Maneuver, which is the name of the episode. And when they finally meet the guy that's been testing him, he's just a baby.
Why is he wearing a beanie?
I don't know, because they wanted to make him look like an alien.
Okay.
But then they voice overed him with
a man,
with a guy, and it was just basically Clint Howard who's drinking Tranya, and
Okay, weird.
So,
what is this called then? What are they called?
The episode was called the Corbinite Maneuver.
Oh,
they're from the First Federation, and this was Balak.
Okay, so the race is Corbinite.
No, the name of the episode was the Corbinite Maneuver.
Okay, what is this race called?
The First Federation. We never learn the name of what planet they're from. He just represents the First Federation, and he's an explorer like Captain Kirk.
Oh, okay.
So it's a cool episode.
Interesting, sure.
Yeah.
That's why did you love? I immediately saw the Star Wars thing. I'm like, okay.
So these aliens are because we saw them in the last season of Discovery. They are the Breen.
Did I watch that?
These are the. Maybe you didn't watch it then, so you don't know what they are. These are the Breen.
Oh, okay. I do know the
So the Breen are in. We see the Breen for the first time in Deep Space Nine. They're one of the bad guys that actually give the Federation a run for their money. And then
they're from outside the.
They're kind
the
of
Federation space, right?
Yeah, they're not part of the Federation.
They're
almost,
outside the charted area, basically, right?
And no one really supposed to know what a Breen looks
Breen
like.
Sounds familiar. I don't know, what.
Yeah.
What was the one weird What was the one that had? What am I thinking of? What were the in Picard season 3? What were the villains? I'm trying to think of where I'm. Okay, what's the weird thing? Okay, what's the thing that is that not what Strange? Okay, what are the weird things in Strange New Worlds that have popped up a few times? That what's her name's family?
The Gorn.
Okay, Gorn. I'm thinking of Gorn.
Gorn. I didn't bring the Gorn up because everybody. We can Yeah, the Gorn's problematic for me because I like the original Gorn, even though it was just a stupid suit.
Yeah.
But then they do this weird CGI version of the Gorn in Enterprise.
Yeah.
And then they bring them back in Strange New Worlds, and then we see them as babies.
Because they're like very violent.
Yeah,
and
they're very violent.
Like, yeah.
But the problem is
Because
that
what's her name? Like his family or whatever was like slaughtered by the Gorn, right?
Right.
Like
right. And people kind of don't like this concept because when Kirk sees the Gorn, fights the Gorn for the first time on the original series, that's supposed to be the first time we've ever seen the Gorn.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a lot of people that don't like
they don't like the retcon.
The retcon of that.
So they're like reptile guys with the Gorn.
They look like whatever the one like Bosk or whatever his name is
behind you.
Yeah, right here. Yeah. There's the Gorn. That's the Gorn.
Okay, so yeah, they're like a Trandoshan type thing. So the Gorn have changed a bunch of times then, basically.
Yes.
Like in terms of their lore.
And
what
granted,
they
the
look
costume in 1967 wasn't exactly awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's fun looking.
Yeah, it was. Captain Kirk, and he
Yeah.
just growled like a thing. But
I guess that's not humanoid necessarily either. So
well, it's lizard based.
I guess like well,
They're
yeah. To be fair, humanoid is like. I keep saying humanoid, and I'm probably using it wrong a little bit.
Well,
like,
they got arms and legs.
Humanoid is just kind of like if you have like the shape, and then even if the head's kind of not like the same. When I've been saying humanoid, I usually just mean like it's like a human.
It's
like,
a guy in a suit.
It's human adjacent.
Yes,
like,
human adjacent is probably what I don't know what they call it.
Like the way I've been using it, even though it's probably incorrect, has been more.
I
like,
agree with you.
I've been saying it as like human with ridges. Like or like human with weird ears, like it's kind of like what I've been meaning by it, but like I've been using it wrong now that I think about it.
So yes, this is the Breen. We see them in Discovery. In Next Generation. We don't really get. They don't really like their language is brr, 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 brr thing like. But it's funny because a lot of people think that the Breen costume looks like the costume that Princess Leia wears in Episode.
They're kind of similar.
But it's funny because no one's supposed to know what a Breen looks like. But then towards the end of Deep Space Nine, like Kira actually ends up in a suit. So clearly Kira knows what the Breen looked like because she took one out of his suit.
I just realized something about like the Star Wars. This is very off topic. This is the Star Wars. Okay, she's wearing like the helmet of like one of these things, but that's like without the mouthpiece can go in and out basically. Okay, so like the green's the visor.
Yes.
Okay, so
I don't know.
But I just
why do we see her eyes then? Right.
Okay, but I'm thinking about the same thing with like the Star Wars one. This is very off topic. Like look where the big thick like thing that you would assume
on
was
her
a visor.
head. It's not.
Yeah, that's not a visor.
But the slot below.
There's a little
where
slot
she was
there,
looking.
which is the actual visor.
Princess
like,
Leia was looking at. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay.
Yep. All right.
So they don't have like an actual look under it.
I don't know.
Like,
we saw them. We see them in
like
Discovery.
under?
We see what they look like in Discovery.
They're
just a generic alien.
What are they called again?
The Breen.
The Breen. Okay, the Breen. Okay.
They're not
these are Borg.
They're just kind of boring once we see what they look like.
Yeah, these are Borg.
These are just Borg.
Which is weird. They're like it's just like the metal components are actually them. Like whatever is under it is just like a different race.
Well,
right?
the Borg they're cyborgs. So they're cross. Yeah. They're basically a ripoff of the Cybermen from Doctor Who, if you think about it. Because they're basically the Borg assimilate. But it seems like they only assimilate humanoids. Like they don't assimilate a Horta or like a fish-looking guy. They seem to only take the ones that have like
we haven't seen like a
noses and shit.
Like
we haven't seen too many where it's a different type of creatures. Occasionally, but most of the time they're just like a human guy that's got shit glued to his face. Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
All right. Next.
That's
You wouldn't know this episode.
What?
You won't know this episode.
It looks like he's wearing like Roman shit, kind of like vaguely Roman shit. He looks like, you know what I immediately thought of?
I think you're gonna go.
You know what I immediately thought of? This is stupid. Remember like the scene in like the what's it called? The Princess Bride?
Sure.
Like where like they're on like the hill and then he's doing like the poison scene. Like it reminds me of
Inconceivable.
Yeah, it reminds me of that guy. For some reason. I don't know why.
Inconceivable.
Like that's immediately what I thought. I don't know if it's just because of the setting behind him.
It does kind of look like that he's in the middle of nowhere. So these are the Temerians.
Okay.
And you might like this episode because Picard and this guy end up like on a planet together and they have to fight like this invisible alien thing. And Picard realizes over time that it's really the Temerians want Captain Picard, and they're kind of testing, like if they can trust the Federation, so to speak. So, but the way they speak in metaphors.
Like Drax.
It's very much
It's like a Drax
it's
coding
almost like
thing.
they speak in references, but if you don't know their culture, you won't understand
can't,
the
like, references.
references.
Really
So
decipher
they're
it. Yeah.
everything they do is based on storytelling. So
It's like how like Drax is raised as like literal,
Right.
Like or like, and they can't understand like
Right.
things that aren't like literal.
So there's a
okay,
whole thing
sure.
about this thing about where they want to recreate this famous moment in their race where Darmark and Jalad at Tanagra like battled together
Was that
and
English?
became friends. And so what's interesting is Picard eventually tells the story of Gilgamesh to the guy, which is pretty cool because it's one of the oldest human stories out there.
Yeah,
is the story of Gilgamesh. So
I think it might be potentially the oldest.
so
yeah.
that's why I love this episode, because Picard, like Captain Kirk would have not, like the subtleness of this wouldn't have worked with Captain Picard. The only captain of Kirk or any of the other captains, the only captain that makes sense for this type of story is like it's got to be Picard. So this
Yeah.
is a great episode about, talking about Gilgamesh and and all the things, and ours, like when they say friendship, they'll say arms wide open,
Yeah,
like
these
instead of
these
like
are Temerians, you said?
the Temerians. This is a very good episode. We never see the Temerians ever again.
They're red like
but this was a
tomatoes.
very they're kind of lizardy. There's a lot of lizardy. All right, this is a funny one.
Like scaly. A little bit. Okay, I know what this is like the weird like parasite thing,
Yes.
right? Like it's not. Okay, does she look like? Does she have the weird? Because that's what's her name from.
That's
Deep
Terry
Space.
Farrell. Yes.
From Deep Space, right?
Yes. That's Jadzia Dax.
Yeah. Okay, and I forget what the so this you're asking me what the parasite is called.
Yes.
Because so the parasite is the
The planet is called Trill.
okay, they're Trillites or Trill.
Yes.
Okay, try to remember that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Question though. So both of these are that. Both these two images. I'm
Both
looking
of
at.
these aliens are supposed to be Trill.
Okay, so is Jadzia, is that her name?
Yes.
Is Jadzia like? Is she? Okay, is her? This is I guess a different question then, because you obviously wanted me to say Trill or Trillite
Yes.
or whatever it's called. So is the little like dot shit? Is that from like her original species, or is that from the Trilite?
All the humanoids on Trill have the spots.
Okay,
Whether
so
they have a parasite or not, because not every humanoid on Trill gets a parasite.
Okay, so they're like
Gets
it's
a symbiont. The word symbiont.
okay, symbiote. Well, yeah, that's what
It's
I mean. I know it's not a
symbiosis.
negative thing necessarily. Like it's a
There's a
although it takes over if you do get a symbiote. Like the symbiote basically becomes your.
no.
Oh no, it's a mix.
It's
Like
a-
you're
it's a
right.
merger.
It's a merge. It becomes both of it.
Yeah.
You merge. That's right. Because like he calls her like old man or what. Like,
Because
she also has her own
Jadzia
like
Dax,
person.
yes.
Yeah, because she also like marries like Worf or
Each
whatever.
symbiont,
right? So,
each symbiont has a different personality. It has some of the experiences and knowledge of the symbiont, but each one has to kind of live its own life. Yes. So it's interesting because the reason I brought this one up is obviously the Trills are really cool.
okay, I didn't realize that that the planet itself, that like where those things are from, actually had like almost like a set. Like there's almost like two. There's like almost like what the symbiote is.
Yes.
And so is the symbiote even its own like personality itself, or is it just like moving on and then you just have the personality from like the last
I'm assuming
one?
if you could communicate with a symbiont by itself, I
Yeah.
would say that it has its own personality. Yes.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, I guess
We
that makes
we
sense.
haven't really known too much.
Yeah,
about
I guess
a
it's very. I
symbiont.
guess it's very like
We've
complex.
we see like remember in The Witcher when they're like
What?
swimming around in the water things. Remember
No.
the things?
It's
Isn't it like in The Witcher where the girl and she like her friends end up in the water? It's like her friends
and
end
then
up in the water.
they turn them into like a
Yes.
fish or something.
So
yeah.
that's kind of what the symbionts look like. In
Okay.
a sense, and we've never really talked to a
Yeah,
symbiont,
like, I know what
so
you're
we
talking
see
about now, yeah.
pools where the symbionts flow around, and Jadzia gets obviously the Curzon Dax. She's Jadzia Dax because Dax is the symbiont. Obviously, all the symbionts have different names.
yeah.
They're not all Dax. Like just Dax is the one
Yeah,
symbiont
that's right,
that
yeah.
Jadzia has. But the funny thing about this one is the guy on the left is also a Trill. But that's from Next Generation before they did Deep Space Nine. And someone realized that the guy on the left just had stupid ridges, and they wanted something different.
Yeah.
So they did a redesign of the alien.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
that's
the
too
Trills-
similar to other things.
Yeah, they
like-
decided that we needed, if we were going to, because I'm sure they weren't planning to bring the Trill.
And I think the little dot thing works better.
Well, let's be honest. I believe that they wanted Terry Fell to be hot. And they didn't really
fair enough,
want her to have like goofy things on her forehead.
Yeah, probably.
Because obviously and they make references that a lot of times people just think they're tattoos. When she travels back to Earth for the...
Oh, yeah, because she can... Yeah,
remember the episode where Siskel comes back for the Bell Riots? She's with them.
No, I remember that.
And the guy's like, "Whoa, who did your tattoo work?" She goes, "Oh, I had it done in Japan." Because it's,
Yeah, it's
but
a good excuse,
but
yeah.
that ink took like hours every day because it was a very specific...
Yeah, I mean,
way they
it's
had
very
to do it.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
And the one episode we saw her in a bikini,
they're like a very
and they had to
little
do it
bits,
all
yeah.
the way down her body. So theoretically, it goes all the way down, like her body, all the way down her legs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just doesn't like stop at her neck. So
Gotcha.
this is the Blue Man Group. They perform in Las
These
Vegas all the
suck
time.
bad.
Yes.
What are these from?
A little bit of everything.
Oh, these have been in a lot.
We've been a lot. There was one on Next Generation that was a barber.
Okay. Yeah, I would have no idea. I don't even recognize this one.
These are Bolians,
Okay.
and they're from Belarus.
That's the worst name.
Yeah, it's
From
bad.
Belarus.
Yeah.
They're from Belarus.
And they're just a guy they're blue with a ridge down their forehead.
Yeah, they're little.
Yeah.
They peel open.
Yes, and they're just this. I don't know. They're not great characters. They're just kind of an alien that was probably easy
It's like
to
the
do.
least descript, like
Because they could
one
just
thus
put blue
far.
paint on the guy and they
Yeah.
could do it. It was an easy background alien.
Yeah, sure.
I think we see him in a couple of the movies and stuff too. So then that's it, except for the last one, is that the fact that everybody likes to make fun of the fact that Star Trek basically's go-to way of doing aliens is just doing ridges on the forehead. Because we've got 4 different races here. Where it's just different versions of ridges on the forehead, except the one with the arrow, where if you can look at it...
Was it the middle one?
Yeah, no, the one with the arrow pointing to the top left-hand corner there.
Oh,
the
the
prosthetic
actual
actually
arrow,
goes all the way across his mouth.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
So it's almost like an elephant trunk or something. People are like, well, how does the guy eat? I think it's supposed to be able to... But it looks like it's attached to his chin.
Sure,
So
yeah.
people kind of make fun of the fact that the fact that the Star Trek aliens are
Yeah,
sometimes
if you did like a
just...
nondescript one, you just
they
kinda
just like, well, just put some ridges on the forehead.
Yeah.
And that was all I did. I didn't do
Okay.
tribbles, but you got one in front of you.
Yeah. You didn't do Bajoran. I could have got Bajoran if you
What's
did Bajoran.
okay? Bajorans. What's distinguishes us with Bajorans? What do they
I
have?
forget, but they have
got
weird,
the ridges
like,
on
they have
their
like a nose thing
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Bajorans are cool because they did a lot of lore with the Bajorans because of being a religious people.
Yeah.
With the earrings and then and then even like the naming thing was cool because like their last name, like we have last names that in America they did like first name is the
last name.
is the family name and the last name changes.
Okay, it's like a Japanese thing.
Right, they were trying to expand the culture. I like the Bajorans a lot, especially like Kira because she's essentially like a terrorist that's trying to like.
Can you do a changeling?
Yeah. Okay. So what do I show for you? The changeling? Just a picture of myself?
No, it just looks like because they just look like Odo.
Well, see now here's the funny
There's
thing.
the other one. There's the woman one that just looks like Odo when she rocks up too, like basically.
But
that's not exactly what they're supposed to look like. That's
No.
just kind of like the base. Like I'm trying to tell you I'm not a changeling, or I'm trying to tell you I am a changeling. So here's a nondescript.
that's not
human
what
thing.
that's not what it is. So all the changelings.
Then why does she look? Why does the other woman who's like the leader or whatever like rock
because
up,
they
like,
wanted
and look-
Odo to feel comfortable.
So they just made themselves look like how Odo looked.
When they decided to come forward, because remember they're just goo.
And how did Odo end up in like the Federation or
So
well, he's not in Starfleet. He's just the security, right?
He was found by a Bajoran scientist and ends up becoming the chief of security on the Bajoran space station.
Oh yeah, I forget because Deep Space isn't necessarily like a
Deep Space was
Deep
originally
Space isn't a Starfleet
No.
like facility. It's
it's
just
technically a Starfleet outpost, but the station was built by the Cardassians
Mm-hmm.
as a mining facility, and they used Bajoran slave labor to strip mine Bajor.
okay.
And when the Cardassians are forced out by the Bajorans, they ask the Federation to come in to protect them,
Yeah.
and that's why the Federation outpost becomes Tarek Nor gets renamed Deep Space Nine. But the idea is
So
that
does what's his name? Cisco, like, is he in charge of Deep Space?
Yes.
Okay, so he's like
He's the commander.
They give him control,
Yes.
basically. Like, it's a Bajoran thing, but he's like basically they've like invited them in, and
Yes.
they've handed over like control of that station to the Federation.
And that's like in the first episode of Deep Space Nine, like Kira's pissed because she's like, we just got rid of the Cardassians and now we're just giving it to the Federation. And like she thought she was going to be in charge of the station.
That's very like imperialism coded, actually, where like a lot of the time when like if you like in the United States, like, I guess the preeminent example is the United States, would like help a group get rid of like a different group, a la like say Afghanistan,
right?
Like then you would like they would just kind of take the place of the group that they helped evict, and then like the whole process would just start again.
I think a lot of I don't know the exact lore of the Bajorans and that concept. I think it's supposed to feel a lot like post like Soviet Union, you know, those types of things mixed in with a little bit of like,
okay, I see.
You know,
so you're like a lot of the nations.
Imperialism that's gone. Like countries.
So you're saying like a lot of the countries that because a lot of you're talking like Eastern Bloc countries.
Sure.
Okay, so I understand what you're talking about, because a lot of Eastern Bloc countries have this thing where they didn't like necessarily. Like they weren't necessarily like didn't like communism in a weird way, and if you do a lot of like polling, weirdly enough, on a lot of those Eastern like countries today, like you'll find that a lot of those countries like preferred like are now capitalist, because like they've been kind of brought into the more like Western like U.S. based order. Like they do like weirdly enough, a lot of people that like were around for both like almost like look back at it as like a time where we were actually kind of more prosperous in a way, but like obviously they didn't like the idea that they had like this like a foreign like entity being over them. But like a lot of them feel that just like it's kind of the same thing exists for like a lot of those like middling like not very powerful like countries that get caught in the middle of larger powers, and like now you're just kind of a part of like a different larger powers orbit, even though it's not as like a military type. Like, you know, or you're not like directly in like a federation with them or anything.
Right.
So it's like a caught between like two large power things.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
It was interesting because I think like
I'm probably not giving the best.
No,
like,
I think but
one there.
It's
but.
not. I don't think it's supposed to be analogous to a specific thing. I think Deep Space Nine really wanted to create something different when it was developed. So we were going to have in Deep Space Nine this issue with the Bajorans. We were also going to deal with the fact that there was a Cardassian Federation war, and there were these planets in the Badlands that that everybody was fighting over.
Yeah.
So you had the Maquis, which was like kind of like terrorists within the Federation. Some of them were people that had left Starfleet that were fighting because they didn't like the treaty. So there was a lot of like, for Star Trek, political stuff that was not going to be a one episode and off. Like they really tried to develop a complex, rich universe. And I love the universe building in Deep Space Nine. And I think that's why for many of us who watch all the Star Trek series, I think Deep Space Nine is the one that has held on and has improved. And in terms of, at the time, people didn't necessarily like it because it didn't have a ship and they didn't have.
Yeah, I think a lot of the political, like, it was very, very overtly.
Even making a choice
I
to
would say,
have
like,
the
Deep Space is
captain
even-
not even
yeah.
be a captain.
Yeah, I
The
think-
star was
yeah.
just a commander.
I think Deep Space is more like overt
You know?
in a lot of its like political and more focused on its like every Star like there's a more like actually here's what I'll say. I would say like Deep Space has a more, whereas Star Trek is always political and always like leans a specific way. Like you more of the time when it like Deep Space is especially once you get to the later seasons less episodic and more serialized than a lot of other like seasons of other shows. So a lot of the other shows due to their like one episode at a time, like nature, and I'm sure there are bigger arcs and stuff within them as well. Like, but you instead do multiple different messages about different things, whereas like Deep Space, you almost get focus on like one or two or three more specific messages that are much more indicative of the entire underlying politics of the show as it goes forward. Is that correct?
Deep Space Nine, yes. Yeah. Deep Space Nine always wanted to have an episodic feel, but they wanted longer plans. They wanted like will Bajor ever become part of the Federation? Will,
I think that's why Deep Space Nine is more bingeable now because of
will
that.
they find more of the Bajoran orbs? Will the like is he really the emissary? Like and obviously they had all these other characters. They wanted to have these other journeys, and they wanted complex characters like Garrick that were like
even just like the stuff between the Cardassians and the Bajorans is one of the main through lines of the show, and there's very specific political messages going on.
We were able to play out a lot of the things that you'd want to see, like that we didn't ever really see played out in Next Generation between the Klingons and the Federation, because by the time we get to Next Generation, the Federation's been at peace with the Klingons for like 60 years or some,
So there's no opportunity to do that type of
because by this point, a whole generation's growing up with peace with the Klingons. Yeah. So they really kind of wanted to have kind of a different feel, and then they decided they needed a big bad, so they brought in the Dominion. And it's interesting. Well, going back to Odo, because you talked about Odo's look. So the idea is that they're just a goo, and they don't really explore because they don't trust.
And they're from the
solids.
They're from the other side.
They're from the other side. They're from the Gamma Quadrant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they basically took samples of themselves, their goo, and they just sent it out across the universe, and we end up finding seeing a couple of the ones that were eventually found, but Odo's the most prominent. And when Odo goes back to find his people, when we see the first set of founders, they all take on his look because they figure that would make the most sense. They can look like anything. We don't know what
Odo's made himself.
They don't have a like.
So basically,
the
Odo
changelings
creates
do
his
not.
own.
Yes.
Okay, so Odo basically
to function.
Odo to just obviously function in the type of society a solid a solids world. He basically invents the idea of what. Basically, he's trying to portray to the people around him that I am a changeling. He specifically creates the humanoid because he could look exactly like a human if he wanted to,
well,
right?
The funny thing about it is that they work on the fact that Odo's also not a great changeling. He can't make himself look like Cisco. He can look like a rock and a bird, but he could never really get the ears right and the eyes right.
Okay.
And his hair is based on the doctor that he
it's
found
almost
him.
So it's as close as he could get to
he just wasn't good at it.
So he would have just would Odo, if he could have just been a human, would he have just walked around as a
he
humanoid?
Could have made himself he could have made himself look like
no,
a
but I'm saying
Bajoran
if he was would he have just picked one if he could, and then we just have him looking like that because for the audience basically, so we want him to know he's a changeling and he has his weirder powers. He doesn't even use those changing powers very much.
It's ironic
the show, right?
that they ended up not using it as a trick. They did not use it as a gimmick. They almost made it like he did not want to use his powers because he felt like he was treated as a party trick when he was found. And he's only been around, he looks old because Rene Auberjonois, whatever we pronounce his last name, was in his 50s when he was playing the character. But Odo's not been
around for
sentient in terms of knowing what he was for very long, maybe only 15, 20 years. So in many ways, Odo's just this cranky guy, but it's not like he's 80. Yes, the gelatin, we don't know how old he is.
Because his consciousness is
but
15,
in terms
20,
of being functioning and being able to make shape and speak and everything, it's not supposed to have been 100 years. It's only 20 years or something, I'm gonna guess. But the idea is that when the founders first run into him, they don't have a base shape. They're just a gel. So they said, well, we might as well look. Because that was that's one of those plot things. Well, how come they just look like Odo? Well, no, they chose to look like, and the writers have come out and said we didn't want him to look like something else because that'd be confusing to the audience. No, since they don't really have a base form, we'll just look. That's why I didn't do a changeling because we don't really have what does a changeling look like? Well, the changeling can be anything it wants.
Gotcha.
It's not like Morph in X-Men.
The sea of goo, on
right?
The planet.
They do see that the planet is a sea of goo.
Sea of goo. Planet, yeah.
So
is Tribble sentient? Or are they just animals?
They're just kind of an animal.
Okay. Yeah.
They're not supposed to be super
That's what
smart.
I figured. They're like just rabbits, basically. There's like circle rabbits.
Yeah, they're just like.
It's like a joke on like rabbits,
Yes.
like essentially.
Sure. I don't know if it's rabbits or.
Well,
just
it's just because they obviously like populate very, very quickly. That's
I
the whole
think
gimmick,
like
right?
the idea is that you're not supposed to feed them because if you feed them they
You're not
breed
supposed to feed
and
'em.
then like you don't feed them very much. If you
Sure,
feed a
yeah.
tribble, because the line from the original episode is like, you know what happens if you feed a tribble too much? What if you get a fat tribble? He's like, no, you get a whole bunch of hungry tribbles. So it's almost like
Yeah.
you don't feed them too much because then if
They,
you
like,
feed them too much,
they
they immediately
multiply very
multiply
quickly, yeah.
like tenfold. And obviously, tribbles are one of those funny things that Star Trek has done a lot of fun with,
Yeah.
and they're a great. They're great glub shitto kind of thing
Yeah.
in Star Trek. So, all right. Well, I think you did pretty well. I thought you.
I got like 5 or 6 of them, and I recognized like half of them.
Yep.
So
All right. Well, what are we gonna do next?
no, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. So we hope that you like this content. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think this was as bad as being subjected to 151.
No,
Pokemon.
I actually like Star Trek kind of. So it's like
I don't dislike Pokemon. I just
yes, you do.
I just like the naming conventions of Pokemon.
Yeah.
But again, appreciate. Please follow, subscribe, share, and please comment. And if there's things that you'd like to see me and my son talk about, please just send us a message on one of the platforms where you're following us. And we'll be next time on Next of Kin. Take it easy.